we think about it purely from the criminal side, that drug use is not legal. Some people have decided that, right? They've decided drug use is not legal, and therefore it's illegal, and therefore you can paint people into a box to say this is criminal activity now. And certainly, there's a dark side to the drug use, in that there are people tainting the supply. There are people who are predatory toward drug users. But the drug users themselves, having possession decriminalized, having the ability to not be facing that same level of intensity with law enforcement, I think can really lead to just a different way of understanding, and can really lead to opening up the conversations with people for healing and bringing things more into the open. I really believe shame is one of the biggest contributors to why people will hide away, will use drugs in secret, will just kind of continue to keep it as a very closeted thing in their life, and a lot of that has to do with, well, I could be charged for this. It's not legal, and therefore it prevents people from being able to actually seek the help that they need. And so I don't in any way think that this is the silver bullet that's going to end the drug crisis in the downtown east side, but it certainly is going to alleviate some of the challenges that are added on top of what people are already experiencing as they are substance users.
And certainly this has become a drug crisis across our country, not just on the downtown east side. What does decriminalization tell society about how we view drugs, you think, Matt?
Yeah, I think I'm hopeful, at least, that it really sends the message that we, for decades, this drug war has been kind of going on both in the U.S. and in Canada, and they've taken a really hard approach to criminalizing it. And what have we seen out of that? Well, just in the last few years, we've seen over 10,000 people die from tainted drug supply. It's really been devastating for this community. It's been devastating for so many of my friends who I get to work alongside of here. And I think that I would hope it shifts the conversation nationally to what many doctors have been calling for. Certainly many drug advocates have been calling for, that we need to talk about this issue for what it is, that it really is a medical issue. And I hope it begins to shift that public opinion conversation. I think there's, in the faith community, I really think that drug use is often, people will often see things in kind of a very dualistic way. It's either it's good or it's evil, and therefore drug use is an evil thing. And because it takes a toll on people, it can lead to relationships being ruined, jobs being lost, health being deteriorated, all kinds of things like that. And so when we see it get categorized that way, it can be hard for people of faith to say, oh, that's really just someone who's struggling with a medical issue, because they think of it as, oh, this is some sort of spiritual battle that's going on, and we've got people who are addicted to drugs and are kind of on the dark side, if you will. When in reality, I think that's not true at all. And I think really when we look at drug use from the perspective of a medical approach, it begins to help us to shift that and really rehumanize individuals who have been dehumanized due to their drug use. And so I think that's important for people of faith to be able to do that, to be able to love people for who they are despite what they're currently struggling with.
And obviously, Matt, you're talking about people who are in the throes of addiction. What does it say to, the issue of decriminalization? What does it say to the 15-year-old, 16-year-old who now sees this and is curious and says, hey, small amount of X, whatever drug of your choice is now being decriminalized, and would actually try opioids. You know, we hear of a lot of overdoses happening with younger men, specifically white men, we'll say in Canada. So what does that say to a younger population who are not presently in the throes of addiction, but might now be curious about exploring drugs because of the decriminalization factor?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thought. As a father of two teenage boys, I can only speak from my experience, but I will say that having it be a criminalized thing would not actually make a difference for them of whether they would decide to use it or not. It's already readily available on the street. They could get it whether or not it was criminalized. And I think that's the reality. I don't know that young people are thinking, well, now that it's not criminalized, if I only have under 2.5 grams, it's fine. I think they recognize this is still a very dangerous substance. But what I think it does is, if someone, some young person does decide to use, which lots of young people do, it doesn't also add on the fact that they're going to be caught up in the criminal justice system now, and they're going to be, have a criminal record. They're going to be potentially pulled into some more criminal activity because of that charge for possession. Which this is really all it is just we're not going to charge people for possession for personal use anymore, and so it can actually save a number of young people from entering the criminal justice system, because I don't think making it illegal is what's making them decide whether or not to use or experiment with drugs.
Decriminalization is just the latest harm reduction strategy that we've seen the government focus on in the last number of years. Is the goal to keep someone alive or to actually address the addiction?
Well, certainly you can't address an addiction if someone's not alive. And so there has to be a multi-pronged, multifaceted approach, but harm reduction has to be there. It has to be part of it. I know for a lot of people that's challenging. I mean, it means you're supplying people with clean pipes, with needles, things like that, and in a lot of people's minds, that's enabling them. That's helping them to use the substance, when the reality is they're using the substance. And so what you're doing is caring for them in that. You're actually helping to keep them from getting additional diseases, keeping them from sharing those disease they may have with someone else. And in that, there's further harm reduction.